Community. Critically appraising one's childhood is never the easiest of tasks. When looking back, most people would probably consider their formative years to be complicated or tough. A quagmire of problems and disappointments, of harsh discovery and struggle. The longer I've reflected on it, however, the harder it's been to argue that my devoutly Anglican upbringing in rural England was anything other than a safe and sheltered affair. I was presented a skewed interpretation of the brutal world around me, taught little about adversity or diversity, almost nothing about impermanence. Perhaps the only salient thing it offered me was faith. If I believed in an invisible guardian and followed a series of basic guidelines to please them, I needn't fret over the dangers that kept most people up at night. Protected in this cheerful bubble, it was easy to cling to a childlike level of innocence. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you was a lovely rule to live by in a world of summer fetes and fully detached houses, where the only C word was Christ. Strangely, my younger sister never shared my innate subservience. From an early age, she viewed religion as a form of oppression, a burden she couldn't wait to shed. To her, I was just a hapless follower, an obedient pet, the perfect product of our environment. She called me Bible basher and bootlicker at home. The names she used outside still make me blush. She wasn't wrong though. If anywhere complimented my sensibilities, my mild and reverent nature, it was the church. I adored the bake sales, the morning hymns, the midnight masses. And when I started a family of my own, in a house in the same street I grew up on, my faith and involvement in the church only deepened. I became Philip the Jolly Verger. I shepherded the clergy through services, passed the collection plate around, and organised all the social events. I felt fortunate to have a wife who shared my passion, who felt equally at home in the blessed congregation. Despite my naivety, I do not lack self-awareness. I recognise that a dedication to Christianity is not cool by most people's barometer, and I'd always worried that my children might take after their rebellious aunt. This turned out to only be half true. My son Max had always been a precocious boy, curious and sceptical, usually with his head in a book. By 11 he'd started to recite the toxic rhetoric of Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. "It's all a big hoax," he'd often say, to my inward displeasure. "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof," was another sentence he loved to throw around. I mostly chose to laugh off his criticism, as I'd once laughed off my sisters. What else could I do? His frequent reminders that all my friends were middle class and white was a truth I found deeply unsettling, however. And by the time he was 15, he'd stopped voicing his opinion entirely. At this point, he not only thought of our faith as silly, he also decided that an association with the Church of England was a form of social suicide. Luckily, however, his younger sister didn't share such opinions. Her devotion to the church was just as strong as my own, and did not require the slightest bit of encouragement. While my wife and I were forced to make peace with Max's atheism, we took enormous pride in Cynthia's loyalty, her wonderful personal relationship with the Lord. I could never understand why anyone would shun the kind of warmth we experienced. Walking into that little hall, cheery faces greeting the three of us with such genuine delight. How could Max turn his back on a community that welcomed him so openly? He even refused to embrace the festive period, the busiest, most celebrated time in the Christian calendar, an occasion cherished by the whole world over. "At least I still have you two," I said one memorable Sunday morning in December, a comment that still elicits an overpowering sense of guilt. I'd entered the church that day to many smiling faces, to Marjorie and Bernard Parker shaking my hand in the meeting room. This was the way it was, Small, occasionally fractured, assortments of families assimilating a large, like-minded flock. I took my place in the back of the room, guiding them all through my aims for the year ahead, chuckling at my own jokes. They hung off my every word with unwavering attention. The only other person to achieve such obedience was our beloved vicar. Afterwards we sang carols, exchanged Christmas cards, and obliged ourselves to Mrs. Barber's delicious mince pies. Little had I known that this would be a final glow of warmth on the day that everything changed. Following the usual long farewell, the cheery discussion of plans during the festive break, I slowly pulled out of the car park and trundled down the main country road with my wife and daughter. The three of us belting out an inspirited rendition of We Three Kings. Then, when I was cautiously navigating a sharp bend, at least 15 miles an hour below the limit, one man's reckless actions changed my life forever. Cynthia was sitting in the back, behind her mother, and I was offered no time whatsoever to react. I barely even registered the Range Rover, just a flash of squared blackness, before all 3 tons of it collided with us. The crunch of metal was deafening. I felt my car spin and skid, and struggle to keep all 4 wheels on the road. A high-pitched humming pierced the silence once we jolted to a halt. I was engulfed by my airbag and unable to move. As it transpired, my wife had at least been offered the mercy of an almost instant passing, but my daughter had not been so lucky. Cynthia clung on for 4 long days in hospital, an empty shell of flesh and shattered bones. God had seen fit to spare the driver of the other car, who had enough alcohol in his system to secure a 7-year prison sentence. I walked away from the collision with a broken wrist, minor ligament damage to my knee, and the knowledge that I would have to return home and tell my teenage son the news. Max cycled through the stages of grief, settling on denial and anger for the longest of the 5, before finally reaching acceptance after no more than 3 months. The same could not be said for me. It's now been the best part of 6, and I still rebound between bargaining and depression on an almost hourly basis. The bargaining is exercised in the form of prayer. I sit in church, or alone in my bedroom, pleading with my Creator to amend their cruel and inscrutable decision. My prayers are never answered, and for the first time in my life, I consider that they're likely not even heard. I was Philip the Verger, married father of 2, always laughing. As Philip the daughterless widower, the world is bereft of joy. Before long I stop attending the parish meetings, only showing my face at Sunday service. And soon even this becomes intolerable. I despise the pitying looks I receive from my supposed close friends, the hushed tones I discern whenever I approach the Parkers or the Taylors, the Greens, Barbers and Snaiths. This watered-down melodrama seems pitiful now, a farce, a privileged caricature. Presently, I've not attended a service in 3 weeks, the longest time I've ever spent away from the building. "You need to go outside, Dad." I'm staring vacantly at the television on a Monday afternoon. Some banal antiques program is on. I'm not really watching. I've elected to work from home again this week, but this involves little actual work. "Sorry, son," I say, raising my head. Miles away. Max pulls open the living room curtains. Fierce afternoon sunlight pours in and makes me wince. "I said you should go out, get some fresh air." "Oh no," I reply, still squinting. "I can't face the parish right now." "I'm not asking you to go to church, just go for a walk. It's not good for you to be cooped up like this. No, maybe some other time. Max tuts, gathering the small arrangement of crockery and cutlery that's accumulated on the coffee table. He picks up the remote and switches off the TV. I've been speaking to people. They said you should find a hobby. Anything that gets you out of the house. My son is taller than me now, which seems to add to the sense that I'm no longer the responsible adult of the household. People? What people? It doesn't matter. Maybe you should try a sport or something. I already have a sport, parish badminton club. But I've told you, my knee is still... There's a life outside the church, Dad. Why don't you join a regular one? Oh, now just isn't a good time. 2 days later, I'm sitting on my laptop at the dining room table when Max slaps a wad of leaflets next to me. What's this? I say, frowning. Just some ideas of things you could be doing. Sports mainly. You need to start exercising, getting a bit of a gut. Don't be so rude. I'm being honest, Dad. Just look them over. I fan out the pamphlets and pay them a fleeting glance. I don't think that's a good idea, not with my knee being... Well, I want to join one, Max interrupts. Summer holidays are coming up and I'll go crazy if I'm stuck in this house for 6 weeks. Okay, I don't mind driving you there. The following Saturday, I wake to knocking on my bedroom door, prompting me to sit up and rub my eyes. Come in, I say, mid-yawn. Max enters holding a cup of tea and one of the neglected leaflets from the dining room. I've decided which one I want to try. Have you? Max nods, handing it to me. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I read aloud, grimacing slightly. Sounds violent. Isn't there a nicer one you could have chosen? Nope, made up my mind. There's a session this afternoon. Can you drive me? I just don't like the idea of you getting hit in the face. What about football? Or a racket sport, perhaps? There's no hitting involved. It's more like wrestling. Can you take me or not? I sigh. Yes, I suppose so. You should try it with me. No, I'm far too old for that kind of stuff. I force a smile. I'll stay and watch, though. Fine, whatever. The session's at 2. A striking red banner hangs above a warehouse door. Relentless BJJ, it reads, heading a silhouetted image of 2 men in a strange contorted position. At reception, we're greeted by an olive-skinned gentleman, garbed in what looks like a rigid black dressing gown. Hello, my son is here for a trial session. Very good, the man replies in a South American accent. I am Francisco. I will be taking today's session. He is short but reasonably stocky, sporting the cauliflower ears of a rugby player. I shake his hand. His grip is incredibly firm, perhaps without even meaning to be. I'm Philip. This is Max. Will you be joining us? Oh no, just watching. My son is handed the same kind of uniform as Francisco's, informed that it's called a gi. You're tall, the instructor says to him. Excelente. Long levers. I watch the session with relative interest. Max spends most of it running through basic techniques with a girl in a white belt. I flinch slightly at the twisted, painful-looking holds the other participants are forcing one another into. They seem to take it well, though, laughing after they tap the mat in apparent submission. I am alarmed, however, to hear liberal use of the C word, which certainly does not refer to Christ. A barrel-chested man named Andre seems to utter it with abandon. After the second Saturday meeting, Max asks if he can attend more regularly, and I decide to buy him a year's membership. The 2 weekly sessions quickly become 4. And by the final week of the summer holidays, both of us have developed a friendly relationship with the members and instructors. I'm a perpetual voyeur in the small coffee area. Occasionally I'll occupy myself with a newspaper, but mostly I watch. There seems to be a delightful camaraderie between the students, despite their coarse language and desire to strangle one another in the moment. The advanced group are especially captivating. It almost appears farcical, but Francisco effortlessly ragdolls men almost twice his size. He nimbly transitions into endless expositions of dominance, some clearly compromising, others not so easy to recognize, but all resulting in a frantic patting of the mat, evidencing that his student has been bested. Rolling with their teacher, the black belt's expressions are sometimes stunned, like that of a non-swimmer dragged into deep water. While Max is changing out of his gi at the end of a Monday evening session, Francisco catches my attention.
Your boy is very smart, Philip. Fast learner. If he puts in the work, he will earn his grey belt within a year.
Wonderful. I'm sure he'd be thrilled to hear that.
You should join in with us sometime.
Oh, I hesitate. I don't think so. I point at my knee. I was in a car crash, you see. Francisco guffaws.
You are injured? Welcome to the club. I have dislocated my left knee more times than I can count on both hands.
I smirk. You're not selling it to me, Fran.
Just try. 1 session.
I falter. I don't know. I'll think about it.
Beginner session on Wednesday,
Francisco says with a grin.
See you then.
Perhaps it's because I feel oddly at ease with the diminutive instructor, but I make a last-minute decision on Wednesday evening, mummifying my knee in athletic tape, before driving to the gym with Max. As I warm up, I feel hideously self-conscious, aware of how slow and clumsy I am. Fran is a kind and patient teacher, however, and by the time I've learned about passing the guard and the 2 hours are up, I cannot understand where the time has gone. Max smiles at me from across the gym floor. It soon becomes apparent that he and I are speaking more at the dinner table, and 6 months after his first session, I'm participating in 3 of the 4 I drive us to. I ask him for pointers on specific moves, which he seems to enjoy giving. And though our conversations aren't limited to the martial art itself, they usually involve the gym. We sometimes discuss Fran, or our new mutual friends. My son is incredibly popular with the members. I take a little longer to ingratiate myself, and I'm not such a fast learner. The progress I make is undeniable though, and no one teases me for shedding a tear when Francisco awards me with my first belt. I come to learn that the gym provides community outreach. There are no bake sales, no board game evenings or treasure hunts. But every Saturday night, Francisco, Andre, and 2 others volunteer at a homeless shelter. On attending this for the first time, the instructor praises me for my work rate and initiative, convincing me to join the group afterwards for drinks. The pub is bustling and loud, a grim place that I'd ordinarily give a wide berth, although I feel in particularly safe hands amongst my party of assassins. I've never been a drinker, and the system of rounds is daunting. I'm not sure how Philip the Verger would have reacted, witnessing my attempts to fit in with this diverse and foul-mouthed group, knocking back pints of lager so no one would think me a killjoy. I expect he'd be most astonished by how much I'm enjoying myself. I realise I've not smiled this much since before the car crash. The more pints I consume, the looser I feel. And soon it's only Fran and I left in the emptying bar.
Max told me
The instructor slurs after a brief spell of silence.
about what happened last year.
I give no response to this. It's still not a topic I feel keen to discuss.
I don't know what it's like to lose a child, Philip, but my wife, she passed 4 years ago.
There's a lump in my throat. How?
Cancer.
He says solemnly.
You'll never get over it, but each day get a little easier to breathe.
Were you angry? I ask, immediately wondering why this is where my mind goes.
Yes.
He responds with little hesitation.
Brazil is a very Christian country.
He slams his palm on the table.
I was furious at God. Maybe he punished me, but why steal a mother from 3 small children?
I can distinguish the pain in his eyes. He still wants an answer. I see you laughing so often, Fran. In the gym you always seem in such high spirits. I lower my head. But the world has changed for me. He shrugs.
The world is no different. It is you that has changed.
It seems a passing comment, but I reflect on this for a moment. Perhaps. I look around, taking heed of my surroundings, as if for the first time. The bar is filthy. People are shouting and swearing. There's a feeling of unpredictability in the air. Danger, impermanence.
A few months after she passed, I start to save, to build my own gym here in England.
You've done an excellent job.
It doesn't matter who you are out there in the world. Everyone's status is equalized on the mats.
I hadn't thought of that.
I know this sounds silly, and I am no priest, but I consider you all like my flock.
I feel a smile spreading across my face. No, that doesn't sound silly.
The gym,
he says.
This is my church now.
Thank you for making it all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, tell your friends.